Things got really crazy. I was hanging out with people from the Hells Angels, learning stuff I definitely shouldn't have been learning. One day my brother calls me up and says, "Don't come home, the police are waiting for you." They had found a bunch of guns under my bed and a bunch of drugs. So I stole a car and I decided I'm gonna head to Montreal. I'm drunk and high, and I had a handgun in the backpack next to me. And I said that if the cops stop me, I'm gonna pull the gun and let them take my life. I just didn't wanna go back to prison. And on the drive there, funny enough, I took the exit to get gas, and there was a routine roadblock. My heart went through my chest. The place that saved my life is where we're going today. And that's why I go every year. These are my kids. I'm who I am today to go speak to these kids. They've experienced stuff that most people will never have to go through. But that kid was no different than I was when I was there, and now I live a completely different life. If you forget where you come from, you are destined to repeat it. So I share my story with these kids to help them stay sober, to give them hope, because I'm really grateful for my life. Addiction is one of the most patient things in the world. It can wait 50 years and get you. So I never forget who I am and where I came from. So I always go back to reconnect with that. And I know there's no other place in the world other than this specific place. The way the program works, the staff that are there, because I tried, I'd been in other programs, dude, since I was 15. Family therapy, rehab centers, 21-day programs, foster homes, group homes, you name it. Therapy, 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 and it didn't work. I was just so judgmental of any person that didn't go through what I went through that I would just shut down. What's unique about Portage is all the staff that work there are ex-drug addicts. And I'm talking like George did 20 years in a Mexican prison for trafficking heroin, and then finally gets released back to Canada and goes to Portage for 16 months. So it's just a different level, man. You got people that have been where you're trying to get, telling you how to not mess up. This is a life program, man. This isn't a rehab center. Do you know how much experience I learned about managing other people and communicating clearly, working through your team? It was like a game changer for me. This is Portage. This is beautiful. How's everybody doing? Good. Sweet. 25 years ago, my dad picked me up in St. John, so the adult prison. I was 17, 16 at the time. He picked me up in St. John and drove me to Portage, and it literally saved my life. I'd grown up in a home with an alcoholic mother, and there was a lot of emotional and physical abuse at home. I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11. Pretty much from that point on as a kid, I always thought I was broken, like there was something wrong with me. My brain didn't work like everybody else. I was super hyperactive, always get in trouble at school. And I had a severe anger issue, and it became too much for my parents, and they called the police to take me. And at 12, I got put into a group home. I got introduced to people that were 17, 18 years old, teaching me stuff that I probably shouldn't have been learning. And it was there that I got introduced to drugs, immediately became an addict. People always want to know what your drug of choice is. Mine was not feeling, didn't matter what it was. And I ended up in prison the first time when I was 14, 15, got out, did 2 months, said I'm gonna change my life, I'm gonna get new friends, gonna just do everything, but I'm never coming back. And I remember the guard was there when I was leaving. I said, "It was nice to meet you," right? Like, probably never see you again, but nice to get you know you. And he goes, "I'll see you soon." His response is very factually, just goes, "We always do." I ended up lasting probably 6 hours from the moment I got back into Moncton, back to the same friends, back to the same parties, high and drunk that night. And then just things spiraled out of control. Things got really crazy. I was hanging out with people from the Hells Angels, learning stuff I definitely shouldn't have been learning. One day my brother calls me up and says, "Don't come home, the police are waiting for you." They had found a bunch of guns under my bed and a bunch of drugs. He says for me to meet him, and we met up that night, and he gave me the only money he had and said, "You probably got to get out of town." So I stole a car, and I decided I'm gonna head to Montreal. I'm drunk and high, and I had a handgun in the backpack next to me, and I said that if the cops stop me, I'm gonna pull the gun and let them take my life. I just didn't want to go back to prison. And on the drive there, funny enough, I took the exit to get gas, and there was a routine roadblock. My heart went through my chest. And I pull up, and the cops are like, "License and registration." I tell them it's my mom's car. I forgot my driver's license at home. He asked me to pull over to the side, and I take off. And I get in a high-speed chase with the police. And I get pretty far into this neighborhood, and there's an open garage door that I thought I could hide in. And I come in going way too fast. And I ended up smashing into the side of the house. As soon as I realized what happened, I went for the gun. And I started trying to get to it and pulling on it. And for whatever reason, it got stuck. And I could hear the police getting closer and closer. And I kept pulling on it and pulling on it. And as soon as the cops pulled up, they literally ran to the car, opened the door, grabbed me. I didn't touch the ground. It was like levitating across the lawn. And then obviously they checked me for any knives or guns and stuff, and then threw me in the back of the cop car. And I woke up the next morning in jail in Sussex, wondering what my life was gonna look like. I got sentenced to like 16 months total. One morning, I'm having breakfast. They let us out our cell block, and there's this kid, Kirk. I don't know if you guys have any like friends that are like built, they have like 8-packs. It's just genetics. Well, this is Kirk. He literally looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and he's 15. And he picks up the coffee, and it's empty. And he just looks around, he says, "Who's the goof that drank all the coffee?" So I just stood up and I said, "I did. What are you gonna do about it?" Full on fight. The whole cell block goes off. Me and Kirk are wrestling. Guards come in, grab us, and they throw us in the hole. If you haven't been in the hole, solitary confinement, you're essentially locked up for 23 and a half hours a day in your underwear. Concrete slab, stainless steel toilet and sink, combo unit, and they don't give you a mattress till you go to bed, and they still leave the lights on. They don't even tell you how long you're in there for. So I was there for about 3 days, and on the third day, the door opens, and Brian's standing there, and he's staring at me, and he's just shaking his head like this. And he goes, "Come with me." So I get my clothes on, I follow Brian, and we're walking down the hallway. The door to the cell block's here. I've never been past that door. If anybody's been in prison, you walk where you go and nowhere else. And he walks past that door to the next door, and in that door, that's the guard unit. This is the room where all the guards hang out that looks over the 2 cell blocks, like the other side of the one-way glass mirror. That's that room. So he brings me in there, there's nobody in there, and he sits me in the corner, and he pulls up a chair, and he just goes, "Dan, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I got in a fight with Kirk over coffee." And he goes, "No, not that." He goes, "What are you doing here?" And he just shakes his head and he goes, "Dan, I've been working here for almost a decade, and I've seen hundreds of kids come in here, and I don't understand what you're doing here. I see you do your homework, I see you stay out of the politics, I see you try to do the right thing. And if nobody's ever told you this, I want you to know that you don't belong here." And in that moment, something cracked inside of me. His belief in me was way more than my belief in myself. I didn't have any belief in myself. And that was the beginning of everything that changed for me. I ended up coming here after a few months of proving myself. Portage rebuilt my confidence. I had zero self-worth. I felt like I shouldn't even be alive. This place taught me that I was valuable. Rebuilt the relationships with my family, right? They had no trust in me. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. And it was at the end of the program where I was helping Rick. Rick and I were cleaning out one of the cabins, and there was this old computer, okay? Back in the day, we called it a 486 computer. And next to it was this book on Java programming. It was just sitting there, and I opened up this yellow book, and for whatever reason, it spoke to me. I thought like it would be super complicated math equations, right? If you guys think of computer programming, you're probably thinking hieroglyphics, like you couldn't read it. It literally read like English. If this, then that. And after 20 minutes, I got the computer, check this out, to say, "Hello world." I thought I was a genius. I know, that's how laughable that was. But the cool part is it didn't matter if I was or I wasn't. Unfortunately, I'm not. What mattered is that I started to find something I enjoyed doing, and I just became obsessed with it. My new addiction became writing code. The cool part is when I got out, then I got into business, and I started companies in software. My biggest fear was when I get out, my life will be, I get a boring job, I go home, I have no friends, and I do this for 25, 35 years. Because my life prior was pretty crazy, but pretty exciting. Does that make sense? Let me tell you, that is not the case. If you just looked at my year, I've gone heli skiing, snow biking 20 sometimes, I've spoken on a dozen stages all around the world. I just got back from Croatia on a super yacht. Life can get even better than you could possibly imagine if you understand what to do once you get out here. That's what I'm here to help share. Does that make sense? Who's got questions?
Was it hard for you to stay sober after you got out?
Super hard. I've been drug-free since I came here. What pulled me back was alcohol. So 3 years after I got out of here, because I had 3 years sober, I thought I should be able to drink casually. So I started drinking again, and I drank for almost a decade. And drinking only created problems in my life. From a failed relationship where I was engaged, I was supposed to get married. 7 weeks before, I come home and she drops the ring and says I'm done. To losing relationships with business partners because I said the wrong thing while I was drinking. What changed was my wife. She was pregnant. We were in the Bahamas on a baby moon. So we're there celebrating, and she might have been only a couple months pregnant. And I went to the liquor store. When I came back, she looked at me and she said, "Are we having a party?" Because I had bought like boxes. We were only there for a week. It was just me. And that night I got way too drunk and we got in a fight. And in that fight, I just realized if I don't remove alcohol from my life, there's a 0% chance that that's not gonna create a massive amount of pain in my family. And I don't wanna do that. I grew up in it, I knew better. That night, I poured everything into the sink and I told her I'm done. I'm never gonna have another sip of alcohol for the rest of my life. And it's the best decision I've ever made. Addiction is patient. It will wait for you. I've seen people, unfortunately, that I loved, that were my mentors, that inspired me, get 30 years sober and then lose it. When you lose it after being sober for that long, the guilt is so heavy that, man, the amount of addiction that shows back up afterwards is 10 times worse than it was before, and that's what happened. So thanks for sharing that. But yeah, super hard, but worth it. Yeah.
What's the hardest thing for you to share about your life?
Here's my belief. The person who has no secrets is the freest person in the room. The shame inside is what's gonna kill us. And that's why you guys are here. One of the most powerful parts of this program was every cleanup partnering with somebody else and either hearing their story or sharing yours. Some of you guys aren't being honest about your story. You're only sharing 70%. There's that other 30% that you're super ashamed of, something you did that you don't want anybody else to know. That might be the reason you relapse. So when you say, what was the hardest part about sharing my story, was getting to a place where I could share it without shame. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was here. The most powerful thing I have to help somebody else is my story. The most powerful thing you all have in this room to help another human is your story. So the thing you've gone through that you're most ashamed of is literally the most powerful thing you have to help other people, and it's uniquely yours. Yeah.
What's your biggest value?
My biggest value? You can only keep what you give away. If you want to be sober, what should you do? Help other people get sober. We'll always do more for other people than we'll do for ourselves. So one of the biggest life's lessons I've discovered is if I want to be richer, I got to help more people get rich. If I want more love in my life, guess what I got to do? Be more loving. It's like the ultimate life hack.